It's chilling, right? You hear about soldiers switching sides, but usually it's like after witnessing the horrors of war firsthand.
Right.
But this Cole Bridges case, what's so deeply unsettling is that he was already like neck deep in extremist ideology before he even enlisted.
Yeah, that's what makes this case so perplexing, right? It wasn't a matter of him being like converted on the battlefields or anything like that. This was premeditated from the very beginning, and it really highlights the frightening effectiveness of online radicalization.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the internet can be a rabbit hole. We all know that. But this wasn't just some casual browsing. We're talking about Bridges fully embracing ISIS ideology online, very publicly, and somehow none of this raised any red flags during the military's vetting process. Like how?
Well, imagine the challenge for military recruiters.
Hmm.
They're trying to sift through these massive digital footprints of all these potential soldiers.
Right.
And this case really throws into like sharp relief the immense difficulties of trying to identify genuine threats from, people who are just maybe engaging in, let's say, unwise online behavior.
The unwise is putting it mildly. It's terrifying to think about someone plotting to betray their own country, like right under everyone's noses. And it gets even more disturbing when you consider how Bridges actually tried to act on these beliefs.
Right, and that's where the FBI sting operation comes in. Now, undercover operations, those are nothing new.
Right.
But what really stands out in this case is the sheer level of detail that Bridges provided.
Yeah, it's like he practically handed them a playbook on a silver platter,
Yeah,
right?
essentially. He didn't just offer like vague support for ISIS. He provided concrete, actionable intelligence.
Wow.
According to the Department of Justice, this included actual sections from the U.S. Army Training Manual, specifically the ones that detail, tactical maneuvers and strategies for ambushing enemy patrols.
So wait, so he's literally giving them the tools to potentially kill his future comrades.
That's right.
It's insane. How did this guy even make it through basic training without like raising any suspicion?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It seems that Bridges was somehow able to compartmentalize, at least for a while. He was keeping his extremist views hidden while he was like simultaneously absorbing all this military knowledge that he clearly intended to use for nefarious purposes.
It's like something out of a spy thriller, this double life he was leading. But this wasn't just some like theoretical exercise for Bridges. He went to chilling lengths to actually prove his loyalty to ISIS.
And this is where the case takes another really dark turn. Because beyond all that tactical information that he was giving them, Bridges also took steps that really demonstrated this deep-seated and extremely disturbing desire to be recognized as a traitor.
You're talking about those videos, right? The ones that were later used as evidence against him.
Yes, precisely. And these weren't like impulsive acts or anything. These were very calculated moves. In one of the videos, he's standing in front of a meticulously placed ISIS flag. He's wearing parts of his U.S. Army uniform, and he's making this very clear gesture of allegiance to the group. It's a really jarring juxtaposition.
I bet.
You have the uniform, right, which represents, order, protection.
Right.
And then right alongside it, you have this symbol of terror and violence.
And it's that deliberate contrast, that intention to shock that makes it all the more unsettling. It's like he was almost like relishing in the role of the villain.
Exactly.
Like wanting to rub it in everyone's faces.
Exactly. And then on top of that, there's the other video. And in this one, he uses a voice modulator to read ISIS propaganda, specifically promoting this planned attack on U.S. troops. It's almost as if he was trying to create this persona, this online alter ego,
Right.
to further solidify his commitment to the cause.
So it wasn't just about like the practical help that he was offering. It was about this craving for notoriety.
Yes.
The infamy of aligning himself with ISIS. And he
Yes.
was like willing to go to these extraordinary lengths to achieve it.
Like he wanted to create a spectacle out of it,
Right.
to magnify his betrayal. And it really raises this unsettling question. I mean, was this all driven purely by ideology?
Right.
Or was there an element of like seeking notoriety,
Right.
even within a terrorist organization?
It's hard to fathom, right? Like what goes through someone's mind to not just like commit treason against their country,
Right.
but to almost celebrate it. This wasn't some like spur of the moment decision.
Yes.
Everything seems so calculated, so deliberate.
And I think that's what makes this case so disturbingly fascinating, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
It really forces us to confront the the darkest possibilities of online radicalization, how someone can be like drawn in, indoctrinated, and ultimately driven to, betray their own country, all without ever like setting foot in a training camp
Right.
or even like meeting a fellow extremist face to face.
It's a stark reminder that, like, as amazing as the internet can be, it's a double-edged sword, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we celebrate its ability to connect us, you know, to spread information.
Right.
But it can also be this breeding ground for extremism,
Mm.
offering like a sense of community and purpose to people who might feel isolated or disillusioned in their offline lives.
Yeah, and we can't underestimate the power of that sense of belonging.
Right.
It's very likely that Bridges found some kind of validation, some kind of acceptance within these online extremist communities that he was engaging with.
Right.
Something that, maybe he felt was missing in his offline life.
So it's not just about the ideology itself, right? It's about the psychology of radicalization, the human need for connection, for purpose, even if that purpose is, completely twisted and destructive.
Precisely. And in Bridges' case, this desire for recognition within this ISIS ecosystem, it ultimately proved to be his undoing.
Because the FBI was onto him the whole time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This wasn't a case of someone, slipping through the cracks or anything like that. This was a meticulously planned sting operation,
Wow.
with Bridges unknowingly communicating with undercover agents who he believed to be actual ISIS members.
It's almost surreal. Like, here he is. He thinks he's finally found his tribe, his people.
Right.
And it turns out to be the very people who are trying to stop him.
It's true. And it really speaks to, I think, the effectiveness of law enforcement agencies in adapting to this evolving landscape of terrorism.
Right.
They're not just reacting to physical threats anymore.
Right.
They're actively infiltrating online spaces. They're identifying potential threats, all before they can, materialize into real-world violence.
So, in a way, Bridges' case, as horrifying as it is, it also shows that there are systems in place, right?
Absolutely.
Like, that are actively trying to combat this kind of online radicalization.
There are. It's a constant cat and mouse game, though, right?
Right.
As technology evolves, so too do the methods of radicalization and recruitment. The online world, with its anonymity, its vast reach,
Right.
it presents a constant challenge to law enforcement and intelligence agencies worldwide.
And it ultimately falls to them to sort through all the noise, right?
Yeah.
To separate, like, the keyboard warriors from those who actually pose a genuine threat.
Exactly. And that brings us to the aftermath. So Bridges, he pled guilty to multiple terrorism-related charges. Now, I won't go into all the legalities here,
Right.
but the sentence that was handed down was significant. 14 years in federal prison.
14 years. It makes you wonder what happens to Cole Bridges after he serves his sentence? Like, does he still harbor those extremist beliefs, or does he, has he had time to reflect, to potentially even renounce his past actions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one that unfortunately has no easy answers.
Right.
It really speaks to the complexities of rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're dealing with individuals who have been radicalized online.
Yeah, it's like trying to untangle a knot from the inside out.
Right.
We can address the actions, the crimes, all of that.
Right.
But how do you untangle the ideology, the beliefs that fueled those actions in the first place?
It's incredibly challenging. And it's a challenge that demands, I think, a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
One that combines those traditional law enforcement tactics,
Right.
but also incorporates efforts to counter extremist narratives online.
Right.
And provide support for those individuals who may be at risk of radicalization.
It's it feels like we're dealing with a whole new dimension of security threats, right?
Right. In the digital age.
Yeah.
It's one thing to try to track down physical training camps and things like that. But how do you stop an ideology from basically spreading like wildfire through the internet?
Yeah. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, there's no easy answer. No silver bullet solution here.
Right.
But, cases like Bridges, they really highlight the importance of what we might call digital vigilance.
Okay.
Both on an individual level and a societal level,
So, okay, what does that look like in practice? What can we actually do with this information?
Right.
Because it's easy to feel kind of powerless, right?
Yeah.
When you're facing something as complex and as pervasive as online radicalization.
Yeah, I think you're right. It can feel very daunting, but I think awareness is always the first step, you know?
Right. Understanding how this process works,
Hmm.
how radicalization happens, the subtle ways that these extremist groups, they exploit online platforms, the psychological factors that they prey on to make individuals more susceptible.
So it's about like being able to spot those warning signs, right?
Exact.
And not just in other people, but maybe even in ourselves.
Precisely. I think we all have a responsibility to be like critical consumers of the information that we're taking in, especially online.
Right.
Like, really ask yourself, like, who are you getting your news from?
Right.
What biases might be like baked into the content that you're consuming?
Right.
Are you surrounding yourself with these echo chambers? Or are you actively seeking out like diverse perspectives and challenging your own views?
Those are really great questions for all of us to be asking ourselves because it's so easy to get caught up in our own little bubbles online,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
To only see what we want to see, what confirms our existing beliefs.
And that's exactly what these groups thrive on. They offer these like simple answers to these incredibly complex problems.
Right.
They offer this sense of belonging to people who feel, marginalized or alienated in some way.
Yeah.
It's crucial to have those, maybe sometimes uncomfortable conversations with friends, family members, even our kids,
Yeah.
you know, about online safety and critical thinking.
Yeah. So it's not just about monitoring our own online habits. It's about like equipping the people around us with the tools to navigate this digital landscape safely too.
Exactly. And let's be clear, right? This isn't about censorship. This isn't about shutting down free speech or anything like that.
Right.
It's about like empowering individuals to think critically,
Mhm.
to question what they're seeing and hearing, and to recognize the manipulation tactics that these groups are using.
It's almost like we need like a whole new kind of literacy curriculum, right? Like
Right.
starting from a young age to help people navigate this complex online world.
Yeah, I think you're really onto something there. And it's not just about knowing like the technical aspects of how to use the internet,
Right.
but about really understanding how it can be used and abused, how to protect yourself from misinformation,
Yeah.
how to engage in these like healthy, productive online discussions, even when you disagree with somebody.
It's a lot to take in for sure, but it feels like absolutely essential in this day and age, right?
I think so too.
So to bring it back to Cole Bridges, his case, while deeply troubling and upsetting,
Right.
it also serves as this powerful reminder of the hidden dangers that are lurking in the digital world that a lot of us maybe aren't even aware of.
Absolutely. And, while we can't predict the future,
Right.
I do think that by understanding the factors that lead to this kind of online radicalization, we can at least start to build a more resilient society,
Right.
one that's better equipped to counter these threats before they have a chance to escalate into real-world violence.
That's a powerful thought to end on. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the chilling details of Coleridge's betrayal to the much broader implications of online radicalization. We've explored the psychological factors that are at play, the role of law enforcement in all of this.
Right.
And most importantly, I think the steps that we can all take to become more discerning, more vigilant citizens of the digital age.
It's a conversation that I think requires our continued attention,
Mhm.
our willingness to really ask these difficult questions,
Right.
and our commitment to creating a safer, more informed online world for everyone.
Listener, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this complex and evolving issue. How has Coleridge's case changed your perspective on online radicalization? What steps, if any, are you taking to become a more responsible digital citizen? Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.